All right, so we've gone ahead and removed all of the corn from the sample from the hopper. Let's go ahead and we'll remove our vacuum hose. I'm just going to go ahead and remove the seed lid cover here. One of the first things I would look at is the vac seal on the door. I would inspect it for cracks, especially in this area here. We tend to see a tearing occur here quite often. Anytime we get wear or a cracking, we can start to lose vacuum, and that certainly will affect our performance on the stand. I can tell just by feeling it, this is an original John Deere rubber. It certainly is a little stiffer. Definitely seen some age, but I don't see any tearing, just a little bit of wear. So for the purposes of the test here now, I'm going to say that one's all right, but perhaps as we move forward, we may change it to see what kind of result we can get. The first thing I notice is definitely the graphite application on the disc here has been worn away. Very good practice annually or even multiple times per year, depending on the number of acres, would be to reapply this graphite coating. You can get it in a spray can, very simply applied. Just wipe the surface off clean, spray it on like a spray paint and let it dry. Take a couple of coats. So if we get down here with the camera, one of the very first things that we look at when we get the lid off is we like to look inside of this pocket here. This is the actual hole, the back side of the hole where the seeds sit. And way down inside you can see sort of that silver piece. That is the Singulator hanging down in there. And we can clearly see that Singulator is in fact covering more than 50% of the hole. That's sort of the rule of thumb that we use for gauging whether there's excessive wear or not in the Singulator. We use our Singulator go, no-go check tool. Very simple, just looks like a little pin punch. We insert it into that window and we try and see if it'll fit in the opening, and this one does not, which indicates to me that there is an excessive amount of wear on that Singulator, which would be the first thing that I'm going to address here when I pull it out. We'll talk about what that looks like as far as a replacement. So that's a good annual service point to take note of. When we pull the disc out, we're going to take a look at the disc itself. I want to see this line on the disc here. That's our extractor. That's the little pick here that removes the corn fragments from the disc. We want to make sure that it's centered. This particular one is a little bit offset, which means that extractor on this meter is perhaps been bent or tweaked a little bit, so maybe we want to make a small adjustment there. Just give an overall look at the meter disc here to look for wear indicators. This surface here is going to wear on the meter housing itself. We can definitely see a little bit of a wear due to disc meter alignment issues, which can be adjusted. Overall though, the disc looks all right. Let's dig a little bit deeper. We've got our Singulator here. This is the component that does the lion's share of the work inside of the meter. These 5 lobes move the seeds around. The higher vacuum holds many seeds onto the disc, and those lobes roll those seeds back and forth as they cross the meter. Very, very common for these things to wear on this upper leading edge, which causes this lobe to push or hang farther down, covering the hole in the meter. Okay, go ahead. All right, so we've got our disc removed. We've got the screws mostly loosened from our Singulator assembly. A couple little countersunk coarse screws. We want to be careful when we remove them that the black mounting tabs that hold them into the housing don't become dislodged or fall out. They are just slipped into place. Another nice trick is to add, upon assembly, a little dab of silicone onto these. It just helps retain them into the housing. But for what we're doing here today, let's go ahead and just remove those so we don't get them lost. Here we've got our Singulator, and we can definitely see we have some wear occurring on this edge, which is what's causing that lobe to cover more than 50% of that hole, that opening where that corn seed will sit. We have 2 options now. First thing I would do is I would replace this Singulator with a new piece and retest it, just to see what kind of performance gains we can get from simply replacing it. Alternatively, we can try and reprofile this lobe. We use a die grinder and re-give it its shape, and use our measuring device and installation technique to measure against the opening in the disc again. That process saves us a little bit of cost as far as parts, but does take a little bit more time. You can usually reshape those once in their lifetime cycle, but depending on the amount of wear, we may not be able to get there. So let's go ahead and just set this aside for now and we'll continue to look at the meter and see what sort of other things we can see inside of here. If we get the camera down inside, I'll just take this screwdriver. Here's our extractor. This is our corn extractor. You can see we've got a little pick on the end there, and our little anvil, our little hammer that makes that clicking noise as the disc rotates around. I don't know if you'll be able to get it on the camera, but the wiper here does have a little bit of a notch. That we use as a wear indicator. And once that wiper has worn down to the edge of that notch, that indicates to us it's time to replace that extractor. These are our brushes. These are the brushes that we would change if we're going to switch back from the John Deere factory disc for soybeans to the eSet corn disc. We've got our seed deflector here, which just prevents seeds from riding in the housing between the seed disc and the housing, creating excess wear and rolling resistance in the meter. So we can see that seed deflector is in its proper up position for corn, and it looks to be in good shape. One of the other things that we're going to look at visually here is just inspect this hub seal. The same way that we did with our door seal, we'll just take a look at it and make sure that it's not cracked or worn in any manner. This one does look all right. We have seen them where they get flattened out or cracked and will cause a vacuum problem.